What does it mean to be a member of this Hall of Fame?
It really hasn't struck me as, it's a great thing. It's a great thing, and I can see it's building. At first I was skeptical of it, but it really has come on strong. They've done a great job. And as long as they continue doing what they're doing, it's going to be a great thing.
Events like this, do you like events like this?
It's excellent. Excellent. Too bad we couldn't get more people to do it. But there's so many things going on in this world. That's all races are all in a world of our own.
Tell me about, you had such a great career as an athlete, as a baseball and a football player. Did any of that carry over into being a racetrack?
I think I was brought up an athlete with pressure on me to do good, not sit on the end of the bench, and to be the best. And I think that meant a lot to racing. The attitude. Naturally, attitude's everything. No matter what you do in life, even if you're a newspaper man, attitude means a lot.
I guess we really should ask you about this, the now legend about you getting into a race car and getting the name Bugsy.
The insane asylum was a bug house. I became Bugsy. Nobody would ride with me, and I just loved going fast. I did all my life.
And the theory is that you became Bugsy Stevens to hide.
Bugsy Stevens was in the Air Force. We had a fantastic professional baseball team. Everybody was a signed player with somebody. And we traveled all the time, and our commander was really a baseball nut. And I used to take off on the weekend. I'd go to sick bay, and so I wouldn't have to travel all over the country, so I could race. They got wind of it after I won a couple of feature races in the paper down in San Antonio, and they called me in and said, they're going to take some stripes if I don't. You're in the Air Force to play what we want you to do, not play race cars. So I became Bug Stevens. My friend is Dave Stevens. I took his last name, and I became Bug Stevens. He was driving at the same time. He became Dave Mitchell because his middle name was Mitchell. We had Dave Mitchell and Bug Stevens.
Tell me about when you came back home to Massachusetts. Is that when you hooked up with Lenny Bowler?
Yeah, I was back here. I came back in 1960, and I raced against Lenny for 3 or 4 years. In 1964, Lenny and he was having a hard time getting power, and we were talking, and I had a camshaft that I had brought back from Texas, and I told him about it, and he started doing good after that. And then after I started stopping by his garage, and then he asked me to drive his race car. I think he'd run Thompson twice with Eddie Hoyle, and he hadn't qualified for the race. When I get in the race car, instantly we won 2 features right away, and that was fuel injection and alcohol, and we became instant friends.
And came to NASCAR, won 3 national championships.
Yeah, that's what we did. We could have won it the first time, but I was a gentleman in Atlanta, Georgia. But I could have won it then.
Ernie Gahan won it, another Hall of Famer.
What year?
What happened in Atlanta?
Well, Ernie had an old junk at Atlanta. He was all over the racetrack and couldn't go anywhere. And I think it was lapping him the 2nd, 3rd time. He came across in front of me. I could have dumped him right there, and I won a championship, but I wouldn't do it. But that's here and there. That's all gone.
You apparently don't feel too bad about it.
No, we're still friends, and I'm happy. What works out, what goes around comes around.
Yep. You were sort of like became sort of like a cult figure, Bugsy. Everything you did was you were under intense spotlight all the time. Did that ever bother you? Was it ever difficult?
No, with guys like you, no problem. It was just natural. I didn't think anything of it. You know, a country boy thrown into the big circus didn't make any difference to me. This is what's happening. This is the way I am. Take me for what I am.
How about winning a championship back then? Winning those, 120, 125 races a year.
My eyes were open, and I was very happy. But I never thought about it. You know, you look back now, you say, wow. But at the time, you're going full speed ahead. You want to go fast. You want to race.
The guys you raced against, you think we'll ever have that kind of field again? Eddie and Richie and
hard to believe.
Larry
Well, we're from a different era. This is all technology now. Mechanics are the stars of the game, but I've always said that. I'm only as good as the guy that wrenches my car. And I've always meant that too.
But it was difficult to win a championship.
A lot of work.
And a lot of time.
A lot of work, yeah. A lot of traveling. 3 or 4 nights a week. Never know where you're going to be.
You had one deal to go south at one brief. It was then that Grand National deal.
Yeah.
Didn't last too long. Was that? You ever look at that as a?
That was my choice. I did have an offer to stay down in Charlotte and work into the Ford deal, same as Peter did, Pete Hamilton. And I had a business going, and I had 3 kids, so I didn't do that. But the deal that I did get into, they hooked me up with a 5-cent millionaire, and the first race we came in 6th in the World 600. I thought I was on my way to Broadway. And the second race, they show up 2 days late for practice, a different crew. And the third race, you talk to the second crew, and they didn't get paid for the first race, and the car was a piece of junk. And I said, I'm going back to Yankee Land.
I think at any kind of interview, you got to talk to us about Richie Evans, about running with him both off the racetrack and on the racetrack.
Rich and I had a great rapport. Matter of fact, I drove his cars when he needed to qualify places. He was a very smart mechanic. And he had Ron Hutter behind him and Gene DeWitt. And they had the money and they had the technology. And Richie was a good driver. And he was a hard-cock driver. Off the track, he was nuts, totally nuts. And the day that he got killed, the night before, he was looking for me at 3 o'clock to go drink beer. So we lived a good life. I'm not going to say any more.
But there were other great drivers, Eddie and.
Oh yeah, Eddie was. I learned so much from Eddie. He was one of my best tutors. He'd go around and tell me what to do, and then he'd do it to me. So I learned fast.
I've asked you this question too many times, I guess, but Eddie once told me his idea of an ideal race would be you, he, him, and Gene Burgin in similar equipment.
Pretty good race, because we all respected each other, and we'd go to the max, and what happened, happened.
But different kind of drivers, really.
Yeah, absolutely right. I try to combine a lot of Gene and Eddie in my kind of driving, because Eddie was a head driver. He was a real brain driver, and that's pretty hard for me.
Is that what Eddie was trying to tell us when he said that? I don't know. That maybe that you were a combination of both of them?
I don't know, but Eddie and I always had a good rapport. We always had a good rapport. You treat the other guy the way he treats you.
Is there one win of the hundreds that you have that stand out?
At this point in time, with my mental capacity, no. They're all good. They're all good. They're the ones that I can tell you that stand out that I'm not happy with is when I was leading that Thompson 300 and Casella calls me in for tires and it's raining. Things like that I can still remember very well.
But you must remember the Martinsville wins.
Oh yeah, Martinsville wins are great, great. Anything you won at Martinsville, you paid for.
And the win at Trenton, you beat all those boys in the South?
Yeah, the one I beat Donnie Allison. But the race with Freddie and I, coming down that straightaway, cars front end through the air, and I thought I'd won it, and I didn't. I got beat a few inches or whatever. That was one of the greatest races. Even they said I came in second, I didn't. It was a great race.
I think that was probably the greatest race an awful lot of us ever saw. Certainly the greatest finish.
Yeah. Yeah. One more lap and I'd have won it, but that's the material.
Yeah, well, it was an extraordinary finish. You had a great rapport with the.
Freddie and I are the best of friends. Nobody knew that. They made a big rivalry out of it because we'd change cars. But that's only because Lenny's wife died and he wasn't sure whether he'd rather chase women or work in a race car. And Pop Tesaro made a good deal for me. So, but Freddie would stop by my place once a month, case of Heineken's. Everybody thought we were fierce rivals. Give me a break.
How about much later, you and Bodine? Was that intense?
Didn't bother me a bit. They had such good equipment, and Jeff was sharp chassis guy. Had all the money behind him. Had Hop with him, and that was pretty. But you knew it. You loved to take a shot at him, but they had the best.
And then in the late 60s and early 70s, we kind of used you with that Hendrick deal. We imported Ray Hendrick up here, and it was a big
Hendricks and I.
Hendrick Stevens thing.
Yeah. They've always used me to promote. Ray and I were good friends. We'd drink beer together and raise little hell together when he wasn't away from the motels. But Ray and I understood each other very well. He never messed around with me, and I didn't mess around with him. We drove as hard as we could.